This is Brinklow Marina, near Rugby in Warwickshire, and last weekend, on the area to the edge of the basin, a large marquee was erected along with several smaller stalls around the edges. A clue to what was about to happen was given by the lines of moored boats, each with vast solar arrays adorning their roofs. And though you can't tell from above, the reason for the solar was because these canal boats are largely propelled by electric motors.
So welcome to the first of what is possibly going to be an annual event. It's not really a show, it's not really a conference, it's not really an exhibition. It's more a get-together of people who are interested in electric canal boating.
The event was organised in large part by boat builder Automarine, who've earned a reputation in this field stemming from prior expertise in automotive electrical systems.
We decided to try and host a show that specialised and specifically concentrated on bringing people together, like-minded people who are interested in electric narrowboating. We held a trials event, which you did a very good blog about a few years ago, and our owners wanted to have another event similar. It basically grew and grew. We thought it would be a good opportunity to bring together a lot of different suppliers of equipment. Crick is a great show, but we wanted to make this more specific so that people genuinely interested in putting an electric motor on their boat would be able to come along and see all the different products on the market available currently to propel their boat electrically.
And unlike cars, for which there are many obstacles to overcome, canal boats lend themselves much more readily to ditching the diesel.
A narrowboat is the absolute perfect vessel for electrifying. Big roof for large amounts of solar, slow speed of travel, weight not an issue. So it really is the perfect vessel for electrification. We don't see electric points being putting in anytime soon on the canal network, but we don't actually need them. It's not the same as an electric vehicle where you want to charge up as quickly as possible and be away, and yes, you can have a coffee while you're waiting. With a narrowboat, it's these people's homes generally, so they're happy to moor up overnight if they need to put an extra charge into their battery. But we would recommend for continuous cruisers or people who are living aboard to actually have a backup generator so that they can charge their batteries if their solar isn't generating enough for their living and cruising needs. But in the summer, a lot of our owners do actually get by purely on solar.
Just a few years ago, the most solar you could sensibly fit on a narrowboat roof was about 1.5 kilowatts if you really rammed it full. Now the tech's improved such that this boat has 2.4 kilowatts.
It was quite a learning curve because you come from a house and we'd only hired boats. So you come from a house and you just plug things in and you don't really worry about it, do you? And then all of a sudden, everything you plug in, that power's got to come from somewhere, which is perfectly fine in the summer because a lot of the times we're getting more power in than we can actually use. Last year we had 56 days where we couldn't run the generator because the batteries were just at 100% all the time with cruising, cooking and hot water and that. End of every day they're back to 100%. And the solar was shutting down and because it had nowhere to go.
Under the deckboard sit a Bell Marine electric motor and in the white box a Silence diesel generator. Yes, you do still need a Jenny because solar's rubbish in a UK winter. But what about spring and autumn?
This year we had some really nice days and we had a week where we didn't need the generator and it's absolutely lovely, and then it all clouds over and rains and we go back to like being in the winter where we need to run the generator to make whatever we're using. And normally for us, because we're not high power users, an hour on our generator gives us a day's power use, and then anything from the solar is a bonus in the winter. And in the spring it's just sort of whatever the sun decides to do. But this time of year we're getting 85% of our power from the solar.
While we're here, let's have a peek inside. Why not? It's a reverse layout boat, so galley first, then the living area further on. The boat's gas-free, so that's an electric oven with induction hob above. There's also an electric kettle, small washing machine, microwave oven, bread maker and a freezer under the dinette. Speaking of which, this is one side of the dinette, the other half shows how it converts to a sofa or bed. The saloon is compact but comfy, with a multi-fuel stove at the end and a TV and bookshelves. Other warmth comes from diesel-heated radiators dotted around the boat. The shower features the most splendid large-scale version of Joe and Michael's tube-style canal maps. This should be standard in every narrowboat. The bedroom is at the bow, with a well deck for mucky shoes. Back at the show, a series of talks were well received by the audience.
That's all, folks.
Pottering around outside, I found a man whose boat is truly electric only, without even a generator.
NB Bowerbird is a fully electric 65-foot narrowboat with no gas or diesel on board. So the main storage is 24 2-volt 1,000 amp hour traction cells powered through a Lynch twin Swordfish 16 kilowatt electric motor system, and then also for domestics using a Photonic Universe Optonica 5 kilowatt inverter MPPT charger system. We thought initially about having an LPG generator as a backup, but of course there wasn't anywhere really safe to install that. So at the moment we rely in the summer seasons on our 12 domestic solar panels, which give us at peak about 3.5 to 4 kilowatt of PV power. Of course, in due course, it may be beneficial to swap out the lead acid for lithium iron phosphate for the benefits that I might get there in terms of depth of discharge and speed of charging. But the boat we've been on board nearly 3 years now. The boat was built over the year prior to that, and lithium was really still in its infancy there, so we went for the tried and trusted.
Being reliant entirely on solar or marina charging surely does limit the trips they can take.
We can go out for a number of days. There's sufficient storage within the battery power for that. And we consciously decided we wouldn't be CCing, and certainly not CCing during winter. At the moment I'm working. I've got a couple of years till I retire when we plan to get out and about a bit more, but our intent is always to winter over. Similarly, we looked long and hard at not just the pros but also the cons of the full electric build, and of course we're chatting with various people. It's obviously no good for a solo boater because you can't really get onto the roof because of the rigid panels, and neither would it really be suitable for a hire boat because hire boaters are really looking to do fairly epic journeys, long days, and they're not in a position to just sort of stop for a day and take it easy and let the batteries recharge.
And Ian says the boat is about more than just electric propulsion.
It is about sustainability. So as well as the electric power, we're also triple glazed, have 3 inches of spray foam insulation and a thing called a mechanical heat recovery unit, which is a small box that draws in cold air from the outside and warms it with a stale air being exhausted from within the boat. That allows us to dispense with mushroom roof vents, and therefore has also allowed us to maximise the amount of solar on the roof of the boat.
Let's do some more tours, starting with this boat whose cabin comes all the way to the bow rather than having a well deck. Inside is the master bedroom with escape hatch to the front and a full-width bed, which must be very awkward to make up. A side hatch provides an alternative fire escape with steps up or down into the room. There are cupboards opposite. At the other end of the boat is a large semi-cruiser deck space. This is a parallel hybrid, which means propulsion by both a traditional diesel engine as well as an electric motor on the prop shaft. That gives you the reassurance of the diesel's power for going upriver, with the electric for quieter waters. A display panel shows where all the power is coming from and going to. Some rather nice stable doors lead down into the accommodation, which is galley first, then dinette and saloon further on. Like most of these hybrids, cooking is electric, as is the kettle. Overhead, a skylight keeps it bright. The dinette is Pullman style, and that leads into a saloon with sofa bed. In the corner is a diesel heater, which means a lot less mess than a wood burner, and you can still heat a kettle on it. The guest cabin is next. Bear in mind this boat is 68.5 feet long, so there's space for 2 bedrooms. The bathroom is standard with sink, pump-out toilet and shower cubicle. And then looking ahead, you see that master cabin we saw earlier. By way of contrast, let's jump ship to a 45 feet long serial hybrid, that is, one that's only got an electric motor but with a generator for power when the 1.3 kilowatts of solar is insufficient. Obviously, being a shorter boat, you can't pack as much solar on the roof as the longer ones. There's that motor, the same one we've seen in prior boats. Mounted to one side in the engine bay is the motor controller box, the brains of the system. The batteries here are lead carbon, though the boat's owner says if he were building now, he'd choose lithium. A quick tour while we're aboard, of course. It is galley at the back again and a combined dinette and lounging area. Things have to do double duty when you're only 45 feet long. But, as with the others, everything's electric, from the oven to the induction hob.
That's brilliant. You can just...
The table can be removed to make more space or turn the sofa into a guest bed. The bathroom is again what you'd expect, a sink with storage under, a composting toilet and a shower. Two single beds make up the final cabin at the bow, leading to a well deck that hides a secret. Underneath that hatch is the generator. It kicks in automatically when the battery charge gets below a certain level. Back amongst the stalls, and here's an interesting concept, a hydrogen fuel cell for boats. It sounds a tad exotic. Is it really a practical idea?
On a lovely sunny day like this, we get free electricity from the sun, so why would we not use that? So this device is very much for domestic power and domestic power in winter. So between about March and October, we'll get enough power off solar panels to run our domestic on-site, and particularly if we're moving the boat. So we're going to be running the fridge, the lights, the pumps, charging the phone, all those sorts of things from the domestic supply. The problem is the winter, because in the winter we find that the solar gain really drops off. Even if you've got a large set of solar panels, you'll find that at night you get nothing, and on some days you get very little power. And unless you live like an absolute hermit by candles, you're going to end up having to do something. And most people have either a petrol generator, which they may run for a number of hours a day, or they'll run the engines of the boat to idle the engines. Both of those things produce pollution, they produce noise, and there is also that sort of anxiety about, am I going to run out of power? You know, that moment when you sort of wash your teeth in the morning and you feel the pump's struggling a little bit, or you look at the fridge and think, is it going to start defrosting overnight because I've run out of domestic power? This device gets rid of all that anxiety, because we know that it sits on the roof, it turns itself on automatically, and will just charge up the equipment on the boat. We get 200 watts, so up to 200 watts, that's what it will produce, and it will do that 24/7, so it will do through the night. What I tend to find is that it comes on in the evening, so it comes on automatically, it measures the voltage on the batteries, it will then kick in the evening, run overnight, and because it's nearly silent, you don't get disturbed by it. Wake up in the morning, the batteries are fully charged. By the time you go to work, the thing's doing the last bit of the charging cycle, and then it will sit there for another 4 or 5 days before it turns itself on again.
Nick likens the fuel cell to a battery that you put fuel in. It has a cathode and an anode like a battery, which mix the hydrogen with oxygen from the air, producing water and electricity, albeit only 200 watts in this unit. And the cylinders of gas are not yet widely available, although things are certainly developing.
We're at very much the beginning of the hydrogen revolution. So hydrogen's being used extensively now on buses in the UK. So we've got one of the largest bus fleets in Europe with hydrogen-powered buses in Birmingham. And we're starting to see use of hydrogen on construction sites, replacing diesel generators and being used on things like lighting columns and access equipment. So the availability of hydrogen is increasing. It's true to say there are not many fueling stations in the UK, but they are starting to be open. So we're very much at the beginning of this, and we're doing some work with others looking at increasing the availability of hydrogen. We have the first canal-side hydrogen available at Aqueduct in Cheshire, and there are around 50 gas and gear centres in the UK, BOC, where they produce the hydrogen that we are using.
It's certainly one at present for early adopters with deep pockets.
This is new technology, so inevitably it is relatively expensive. It's a new product. So the unit itself is £7,500, and the bottle of gas is £77.50 from BOC, and that's to give you 6.5 kilowatt hours of power. And there's also a £16 a month higher charge for the cylinder. So in time, we think that the cost of the gas will come down. At the moment, it's probably about 8 times more expensive per kilowatt hour than a petrol generator. But we think that the price will come down over the next few years as the hydrogen gas becomes more available. And sometimes a engine installed as a generator in a boat is sort of £7,000 or £8,000. So we're sort of equivalent to the cost of an installed generator in a boat. I appreciate a petrol generator is significantly cheaper, but at the end of the day it produces a lot of noise and pollution and can also be quite unreliable.
Let's step aboard a most unusual narrowboat for the final tour. This is one from Mothership Marine, who've been banging the drum for serial hybrids for several years. What a lovely back deck that is. Under the floorboards you immediately spot the battery bank, which is unconventionally atop the holding tank for the toilet. Batteries are looking very complicated these days. And that's the motor, a custom design for Mothership Marine.
It's a 15 kilowatt PMAC motor, but the main thing about it is that it has 143 Newton meters of torque, which means that it can easily power a 20-inch prop. It means that when you travel very efficiently and very quietly.
That efficiency is shown on a display just inside the hatch. Going on down shows an interior unlike any other. Chaise longue instead of traditional narrowboat sofas or captain's chairs. They open up to provide storage. The stove at least is conventional. No surprises that the galley is all electric. This is another gas-free boat. I rather like this sink in the bathroom. And then in the forward cabin, split beds again, but with a touch of magic, as these rise and lower electrically, keeping them out of the way during the day, but joined as one large double at night.
And these are 5 feet.
With a large forward hatch, the view ahead is splendid. And yes, that tunnel lamp is something else. Under a fiberglass hatch in the otherwise steel construction, you find the generator. And just ahead of that, there's a bow thruster for easier manoeuvring. Other stands at the show included Onboard Energy, who I've ordered some bits from for my cabin cruiser. This is their schematic layout of the bits used for electric propulsion on a narrowboat. If you want to hire a hybrid narrowboat, Cafwin Cruises have one for holiday rentals. And there were motor manufacturers and battery suppliers showing their wares too. The trouble is that electrifying everything is at the moment still very costly.
It is expensive. I mean, we converted one of our diesel boats to electric, a serial hybrid, Ollie Owl, which it cost us about £40,000. That was using premium products, so we were using a Fisher Panda generator and lithium batteries and a good motor, but that was going into the hire industry, so it needed to be very robust. Technology is improving all the time, and prices are coming down, so we're seeing massive advances in lithium battery technology, not the lithium batteries that have the bad press. We're using LFP, lithium phosphate ion batteries, which are far more chemically stable. And the prices are coming down the whole time. Solar panels, the technology is improving all the time and prices are coming down. Motors, there's more and more motors coming into the market which are good. So I would say in the future it will be far more within reach of a lower budget.
For some folk, the show was a fascinating glimpse into emerging technologies. For others, it was a chance for a spot of sunbathing. Whichever camp you fall into, electrification is here to stay. Cheerio.